Hello, welcome to the LD4 2022 conference, Linking Global Knowledge. I'm Jim Hahn, I'm the session facilitator. Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to highlight a few resources of interest to our attendees to help you navigate the conference. We have a conference website that has several important links, including a code of conduct. So I dropped the link there in chat. We also are using hashtag LD4 2022 for linked data conference tweets. We have a Slack just for the conference. You should be able to sign in with this Slack invite that I just dropped into the chat. We have a channel there dedicated to tech support. So also you can use that to continue the conversation after any session here this week. There are dedicated channels in the conference Slack for that purpose. And then just a final note on where to find these sessions later. We are recording or live streaming most of them to YouTube. So you'll be able to find the recordings later at the LD4 YouTube presence. This is our LD4 YouTube link. This particular session is being live streamed to there. In case we reach capacity, folks will be redirected over to that live stream. So with that out of the way, let me stop my screen share and introduce our speaker, Georgina Burnett, Senior Partner Manager at Wikimedia Deutschland, interested in all things open data and knowledge. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. With that, I will mute myself and take it away.
Thanks, Jim. Hopefully I've successfully unmuted myself. Everyone can hear me. And hopefully everyone can also now see my screen. If I could get some form of confirmation that that's the case, that would be great. Yes, excellent. Thank you. Thank you to those in the chat who have confirmed everyone can see my screen. Right. Okay. So, yeah, as Jim said, my name's Georgina. I work as a partner manager at Wikimedia Germany. This is where most of the software development work, the bulk of the software development work for Wikidata and Wikibase is done. That's why you have two speakers today from our software development department. I'm going to be focusing on Wikibase, and of course, Lydia will speak a little bit later, or just after this session even, on Wikidata. I'm super happy to be here and to also talk to you about Wikibase, and excitingly also a kind of newer project in that sense called Wikibase.cloud. Before I do that, I wanted to just start this presentation with a bit of an explanation about who we are, why we do this development work, these sorts of things. So basically, we're a nonprofit. We're based in Berlin. I'm currently coming live to you from my living room in Berlin, and we're the German chapter of the Wikimedia movement. So this movement is all about increasing access to knowledge. Some projects are really well known, for instance, Wikipedia, Wikidata, but there are really a number of different projects all working towards increasing access to knowledge. Specifically in our chapter, so at Wikimedia Germany, we have a software development department. Not every chapter does. That's why I think this is worth mentioning. Not every chapter is actively working or developing Wikimedia projects. But we do have a team of software in our software development department, all working on Wikidata, Wikibase, among other projects. There are also, for instance, technical wishes or fundraising. But really what our job is to deliver, create useful open source software that facilitates opening up access to knowledge, so increasing access to knowledge around the world. It's, I think, important to talk about Wikidata when we're talking about Wikibase. So I always start this story with a little bit of an overview for Wikidata. My apologies for anyone in this audience for whom this is completely redundant and you know all of these things about Wikidata already. But I really feel like it's a good way of making sure that people understand how these projects are related and also increasingly how they're different. So back in 2012, Wikidata was started. It's a Wikimedia project. It was started in our software development department at Wikimedia Germany. It's a free and open knowledge base. This is what it looks like. Currently over, I think, 98 million items in there. The last time I checked, which I think was fairly recently. I hope that number is accurate. And it's a free and open knowledge base. As I said, it contains linked data, general purpose data on the world. It's linked to other databases, so it doesn't just exist kind of in isolation, but it's really linked to external databases as well. All of the data available in Wikidata is available under a CC0 license. Anyone can use it, reuse it, do awesome things with it, as they often do. It's based on statements and references. So you have items, which we'll explore in further depth in these following slides, but you have items, and then you have statements that give further details about the items, and then also references where you can link to an external source, for instance, that kind of backs up what's said in the statement. It's both human and machine readable. So you and I can have a look at it, scroll through it, and make sense of all the data, the linked data that's stored in there. But machines can as well, which means that you can build really awesome tools and do creative things with it on your computer. It's multilingual. So instead of having separate language Wikipedias, as you do, for instance, with English Wikipedia, German Wikipedia, etc., it's instead an item, and then you have labels in different languages. So in that sense, it's multilingual, and it's collaborative. Like most of our projects, there is an amazing group of volunteers, of community members who are involved in maintaining that data, making the project what it is. So how is data modeled? Within Wikidata, instead of having nice encyclopedic text as you would typically have in a Wikipedia article, you have users essentially model the world in terms of triples. This is a triple structure with an item, a property, and a value. Here we have an example in Maya Angelou. Maya is the item in this case. She's given an item identifier, which is unique, and only the number or the identifier for Maya. No one else or no other item in Wikidata has this identifier. And then you provide further information through properties, in this case, instance of, and then adding a value there, in this case, human. So this triple structure is what's consistent throughout Wikidata. Beyond that, though, you can add additional details. So beyond this triple structure, here we see another example of that. Here we have a statement that is about an award that Maya received. Here we use the property award received, and then we add the value, so which award that was, the National Women's Hall of Fame. But beyond that, it might be interesting to know when she received this award, and we can add this through qualifiers. So here we can add a qualifier specifying at what point in time Maya received this award, and then we can specify a year, in this case 1998. And then you can, of course, add references as well. So here we could click on that link, go on the Women Hall of Fame website, and just make sure that it's actually true that Maya Angelou received this award in 1998. And of course, we're all about linking data. So a really important aspect of all of this is having items that are then linked to each other. Maya Angelou, for instance, is linked to a number of different items. These are just a few examples. She's linked to the city of St. Louis in the US, which of course is its own item within Wikidata. This is through the statement or the property place of birth. And then of course she's linked to this award that she received. She was a human, so she's linked to the human item. And of course her spouse. So Paul Dufay has his own item in Wikidata, and they're also linked together. In this sense, you get a good idea of Maya in relation to all of these other items in Wikidata, and understand kind of the way that we link items to each other, which is a really important part of Wikidata. So we have this general purpose database with 98 million items in there last time I checked, I believe. What do we do with that? What kind of fun things can one do with that? And you can ask questions of it. Of course, if you ask a question of Wikidata, it's just drawing upon data from Wikidata. So we cannot say that it's 100% the truth, but it's definitely an answer you can get based on all of that information, that general purpose data that lives in Wikidata. We can do this in two ways. One is the Wikidata query service. That's on the left-hand side. This is what this looks like. If you're skilled in writing Sparkle queries, then this is a really great option for you. If not, there's also the Wikidata's query builder. So this is development work that was done in our software development department last year. And essentially what you can do with this is build a query without knowledge of Sparkle. So this is really great for anyone such as myself who doesn't necessarily have the skills at the moment to write a Sparkle query, but still wants to ask questions of Wikidata. Some examples of questions you can ask. I'm not sure if anyone in this call has ever wondered about statues around the world measuring more than 30 meters in height. But if you have, here is an answer based on what's stored in Wikidata. So essentially you can specify that you want the answer presented to you in the format of a map. So here we have a map of the world, and we can see that there's really certain parts of the world where there are a lot more statues that measure more than 30 meters of height, at least that are logged in Wikidata. Of course, that's an important qualifier. So yeah, in India, Japan, many statues above this height. In other parts of the world, it doesn't seem like there's been recorded, or it's not been recorded in Wikidata that there's many at all. So there's that answer to that question. And of course, if you've ever wondered about coups during the 21st century, so here is a timeline, much like the ability to specify that you want an answer presented in a map, you can also instead specify that you want it presented as a timeline. And that's what we've done here. So we've got a timeline of a number of different coups that have happened over the course of the 21st century, so far at least. So that is a very basic introduction to Wikidata. How does this relate to Wikibase? Wikibase is the software that's used to run Wikidata. Wikidata is a Wikibase instance. So it was originally developed specifically for this purpose, to run Wikidata. So naturally they have they share a birth date in that sense. Back in 2012, Wikibase was developed by the team working on Wikidata at Wikimedia Germany. And that's where it's continued to be maintained today. So in our software development department, that's where we do the development work for Wikibase. Today, it's free, open source, and collaborative software. Anyone can use it. And whilst it was originally developed for Wikidata, it's kind of developed beyond this original purpose. It's now being used by a number of different projects outside of the Wikimedia movement, and some of these we'll talk about today as well. So what can you do with Wikibase? Or what does it offer? So you can create and manage your own linked knowledge base. Excitingly, for many people, it allows a lot of flexibility when we talk about creating a data model or an ontology. Instead of having an ontology or a data model imposed on the user, you instead can create properties that really suit your specific data and your specific needs as a project. Of course, it has this very familiar Wikimedia project MediaWiki interface that many people who know the Wikimedia projects will feel very comfortable with. And that of course means that you can easily access and update the data within Wikibase. And just like on Wikidata, you can write Sparkle, or you can have a Sparkle endpoint and write queries, which means that you can ask questions of the data that lives in your Wikibase instance. So those are some of the things that Wikibase can do. What does this mean in practice? What kind of projects is this ideal for? So if you're working with a linked data collection that really could benefit from having a flexible data model, then Wikibase could be really great for you. If you're interested in linking databases to external sources, this is definitely something that you can do with Wikibase. And in that sense, it would be potentially a good software for you to use for your project. It's also great for collaborative projects. Naturally, Wikibase facilitates kind of updating and maintaining the data as a group. So if you have a large group of people across the world, or even within the same building, all editing and manipulating data, then Wikibase can be really great for this. If you're interested in having a data that's both human and machine readable stored in a Wikibase instance, then this is of course also possible. And of course, projects involving multilingual labeling. So we mentioned in terms of Wikidata that it's a multilingual project. This is made possible by the Wikibase software. And that's in general the case. If you look at a lot of the really cool things about Wikidata, you'll see that the underlying software of Wikibase is a lot of what makes that possible. Before going any further, I wanted to just kind of spend a minute talking about what we're trying to do here. So why we're doing all of this development for work for Wikibase, what our vision is with this product. And what we're really trying to do is create a software that makes it possible, that makes it easier to create, connect, and grow a collaborative linked knowledge base. So we have this vision of the world, and where we are basically enabling the co-creation of the world's largest knowledge graph of free and open data, which can then be used to create new knowledge for the world. So this is essentially what we're working towards. It's ambitious, and it's really what drives us to do and guides our development work for Wikibase. If you want to learn more about our strategy and our vision, there are also some links that I can pop in the chat afterwards, or share in the Slack chat, where you can really read up on the kind of specific strategy we have for Wikibase and what we're focusing on in the next few years. So this is a library conference. So I did want to make sure that there was at least one slide in here that talked about what this might mean for libraries. And in that sense, Wikibase is really a practical solution for a library who's dealing with linked data that requires a flexible data model. As we talked about, this is really one of the strengths of Wikidata. But also what it does is it allows the library to connect to this larger network of linked open data, namely via Wikidata. And this is really, I think, where its strength lies and why it's interesting, particularly interesting for librarians in the library context. There are some examples of Wikibase being used in the library context already. So it's being evaluated by a number of libraries, really as a tool to help them store and manage their linked data, and of course connect to this larger ecosystem of data via Wikidata. Some of these institutions are listed here, but one particular project I just wanted to quickly delve into was the German National Library. So I would say that this is probably the most well-known Wikibase project. Anyone in this call who's familiar with Wikibase has probably heard about this. It's been going on for a few years, and it's essentially the first major Wikibase project at a national library. What they're doing at the German National Library is they're using it for their authority file, called in German the Gemeinsame Non-Datei. And essentially this is a German-speaking authority file that's used across German-speaking countries by GLAM professionals when, for instance, cataloging and building their own internal systems. What they've done with this project essentially created a mirror of the G&D file, so this authority file, and they want to put it in a Wikibase instance, because with Wikibase, what they can do is they can open up access to that file and also increase the collaborative nature of work on that file. So now in a Wikibase instance, what could be made possible is that all kinds of different people could edit that file, could contribute to it, and of course then increase its quality in that sense and make it more interdisciplinary. So lots of different people from lots of different disciplines all contributing to this integrated authority file. There was also by the way, a presentation on this project only, I think, last week. And that's also a link that I can share in the Slack channel if people are interested in hearing more about this project. It was part of the LD4 Wikibase WB Stack working hour. Beyond libraries, I also wanted to mention a few other projects that are really exciting and also making use of Wikibase in some kind of way. One is enslave.org. So here you have a number of researchers working on the history of the transatlantic slave trade. Traditionally or originally, a lot of these researchers were working on separate, unconnected databases. But what they've done with Wikibase is tried to bring all of that data together in one spot to link it together. So uniting a number of different, what were previously separate databases. At the moment, or at least the last time I looked, it contained about 850,000 records, all covering people, events, places, and sources involved in the transatlantic slave trade. Another example of the way that Wikibase can be used, is the EU Knowledge Graph. This is a Wikibase instance managed and maintained by a team at the EU Commission. It contains general purpose data, a lot of which they've taken from Wikidata, as well as really kind of specific data about EU funding and its beneficiaries, specifically cohesion funding. So this makes up about 1/3 of the EU budget. It's a significant amount of money. And what you can do as a user is go onto the front end website, so the Kohesio website, have a look in your local area, have a click around on some maps to see what has been funded in your local area, what kind of projects have been funded in your local area by EU Commission funds. And in that sense, the Wikibase instance acts as a data repository for this front end website, Kohesio. So anyone can access that if you're curious. I can also share some links in the Slack channel afterwards so that you can have a poke around. And if you're based in Europe, you might be interested to see what's been funded by the EU Commission through the cohesion funds. So that's Wikibase. And I hope that has helped anyone who's not yet familiar with Wikibase get a bit of a better understanding of what the project is about, where it's come from, what its history is, and also some really cool ways that it's currently being used to increase access to knowledge. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Wikibase. And I think a good way to start with Wikibase is kind of framing how we ended up working on this project. So there was a bit of a problem with it. The problem, in that sense, the problem statement for this project was that we were very much aware that setting up and maintaining a Wikibase instance was time-consuming, costly, and really required technical expertise. And this meant, of course, that it was limited. It meant that it was limited the amount of people, the amount of projects that could really, honestly, meaningfully engage with Wikibase, because they didn't necessarily have one aspect of these three components or any of them, or they were simply not able to work with Wikibase in the way that they envisioned. So with that in mind, Wikibase.cloud was developed as the solution. So to respond to these challenges, a Wikimedia volunteer called Adam Sholin, who also works in our software development department as a staff developer, created WB Stack. This is already way back in 2019. And they gave this to the Wikimedia movement as a gift. And in 2021, so just last year, we just decided to essentially develop and maintain Wikibase.cloud as a successor to WB Stack. So the idea is to sunset or to stop running WB Stack as a volunteer project, and instead Wikibase.cloud has been developed and it's now maintained by us in our software development department as a replacement to WB Stack. What we're trying to do here is really make it easier than ever, as easy as possible, to create, connect, and grow a linked open database. So that's what our goal is here. That's what we're trying to achieve with this product. So yeah, back in 2021, in October, I don't know if anyone here was in that session, but at WikiDataCon, we announced that we'd set up Wikibase.cloud. And essentially for the past 6+ months, we've been really focused on making that happen and launched a few months ago a closed beta version of Wikibase.cloud. Our first priority, though, in that sense, was really migrating users who were already on WB Stack to the new service. We're now finished with that and have new priorities, but that's really what we spent the first few months doing, setting up the service, keeping it closed as a beta version so that we can iron out some of its issues and make sure that it's a reliable service. And then, of course, migrating users from WB Stack. This is what it looks like. So if you go to Wikibase.cloud, the website today, this is what you'll find. This is the home page, and that's it, or the landing page. And then if you were to go about setting up a Wikibase instance, this is essentially a 3-step setup process. So you log into your account, provided you have an account, of course, entering your email address and your password. And then you are led to this page that says your wikis, and you have a big plus sign there with a blue background. If you click on that, that's where you can start creating wikis. When you click on that, you get a list of different options or kind of information that you need to provide to create the wiki. So for instance, the site name, the domain name, the user, and of course, agreeing to the terms of use. And then you click Create Wiki down in this corner here, and you have a Wikibase instance. That's how simple it is. And that's really what we intended, that it's very easy as a user to set up a Wikibase instance. Here is my LD4 demo Wikibase instance. It's got no data in it, of course. I'll have to upload some things, but this is essentially what a new Wikibase instance, a newly born Wikibase instance on Wikibase.cloud would look like if you created it within your own account. Then there's also another number of options, settings, and features that you may want to play around with. So for instance, setting a skin or a logo. And then of course, features, including mapping properties to Wikidata, mapping items to Wikidata. Federated properties, which some of you may know is not currently functioning on Wikibase.cloud, and we're yet to kind of have make a clear decision on what the future is there. But just FYI, that's currently not a feature that's enabled on Wikibase.cloud. So what comes next? What are our plans now that Wikibase.cloud exists? It now has a number of users who were all moved over from WB Stack. The focus for us is really on improving the service and then also opening up access to those who have filled out an application to join the waiting list. I can also provide some links for the waiting list in the chat and also in the Slack channel after this. But this is really our priority for the next few months. Later in this year, we'd really like to open up the service more broadly. What exactly this looks like, when this will be exactly, is not yet clear, but that is our intention for now. Yeah, and ultimately with Wikibase.cloud, what we're really trying to do is offer a free Wikibase as a service platform for those who are looking for a place to share their linked data with the world. So if you are one of those people that have linked data that you'd like to share with the world via a Wikibase instance, then please do consider submitting an application to join. You just have to fill out some information. And then we'll get in contact once it's possible to join up the service. And of course, if you're just curious, or if you really want to keep up to date with what we're working on, how we're progressing, what our plans are, please do visit our project page. Again, I'll provide a link to this so that you can keep up to date with what's happening and how we're progressing with the project. And with this last slide, it's I just wanted to give you some kind of further information about joining the Wikibase community. So if this session has piqued your interest about Wikibase, if you're thinking it would be great to connect with other projects already engaged, then there are a number of different channels through which you can do this. One is the Wikibase community user group. There's also the mailing list in the Telegram channel. We also have a separate mailing list for Wikibase Cloud users or Wikibase Cloud interest people that are interested in simply Wikibase.cloud, but maybe not yet users. We also have monthly meetings called the live sessions, organized by a colleague. That's also a forum where you're welcome to join and really ask any questions or share any information about what you're working on. And then, of course, we have existing documentation for all the projects, an FAQ, which I find really useful, and also a directory for third-party support. So if you're already kind of further along with your project, you're maybe looking for some support, some consultant services to help your project move forward, then the directory might be a really useful place to look. Yes, that is it in terms of the content of the presentation. I have not managed to keep up to date with the chat, and I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I'd be really happy to take any questions and see if I could provide any answers, or at least get back to people on Slack who I didn't manage to provide an answer to live.
Yeah, it looks like a couple folks were interested in getting access to the slides.
Yes, definitely. Lots of links in there that I think could be really helpful. That is most certainly something I can do.
And then there was one question about a link to the application for the Wikibase.cloud.
Yes, that I can already provide. So there's the link for early access. That should work. Let me know if you have any issues. Oh, that just went to hosts and panels. There we go. That should go to everyone. Let me know if you have any issues with the application. Otherwise, with the slide deck, I can actually share that right now so that everybody who's already in the call doesn't miss it.
Great. Yeah, we are running up against time, but I will, let's see. It looks like we have 2 Wikibase.cloud questions. Will Wikibase.cloud allow users to import properties and entities from Wikidata in the future?
That's not exactly clear. I'm not sure what the future looks like for federated items or properties. There should be more decisions around this sometime this year, but unfortunately, I'm really not able to answer this in a satisfactory way just yet. You'll have to wait and keep up to date and see if we make any decisions around that.
Great. And finally, this is our last question. Ruth asks, how easy or encouraged is it to, if you have a Wikibase.cloud, can you just destroy it if you're experimenting at first and it goes sideways, or should you just wipe data and start over?
So it's definitely possible within Wikibase.cloud, as far as I know, to create an instance and then delete it. I actually recently did this. I created an instance that I then was not very happy with and wasn't very useful, so I removed it. This is definitely something you can do. It's something you can do, I think, within kind of the dashboard that I showed before. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. It's definitely, I mean, also just in terms of like, if you're interested in using Wikibase.cloud as a place to kind of experiment and pilot and sandbox, then this is also possible. It doesn't have to be a permanent home for data, but it can also be a place where you trial and then decide, I'm going to start again, delete that instance and create a new one.
Okay, and then, sorry, I do need to end this session in a moment, but there's a question about using different data models, like CDOC CRM for museums, IFLA LRM for libraries. Like, how difficult is it to use different data models in Wikibase?
So I am no expert when it comes to data modeling, and I really think that's up to the user to explore and kind of experiment with. I know, for instance, with CDOC CRM, there's been some community work around this. So there's a paper, or there was a presentation by a group in Luxembourg who worked on this that I can also share around in the Slack channel if people are interested, that explores how they, within Wikibase, use CDOC CRM. With other data models or existing data models, it's really something that the user should explore and see what suits their specific purposes.
Great, thanks so much. That's there's so much here. we're gonna close out for today, and then we can continue this conversation on Slack. There's a dedicated channel for this.
Yes, I will be hanging around on Slack. So if anyone has any further questions that I haven't satisfactorily answered yet, please feel free to share them there.
Thanks so much for sharing your expertise with us. We really appreciate it.
Enjoy the conference, everybody.